This week, join me as I explore one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries.
Who built these incredible structures? Was it really the ancient Egyptians?
Or could these be the legacy of a lost civilization? To get to the truth, I'll go deep inside the greatest pyramid on Earth, then descend far below the first pyramid ever built. I'll explore evidence some say proves the Sphinx is twice as old as previously thought. We're digging for the truth, and we're going to extremes to do it.
Hi, I'm Josh Bernstein, and this is Cairo. With over 20 million people, it's one of the largest cities in the world. And for over 1,000 years, it's also been one of the greatest. It's easy to see why. With this beautiful architecture and bustling market, people have been drawn here for centuries. Walking around the market, the city feels ancient, but it's not. When Cairo was founded in 970 AD, civilization had already existed in Egypt for over 4,000 years.
And the greatest evidence of this is pretty hard to miss. The pyramids are the last remaining wonder of the ancient world. Today, they rise out of the desert literally on the very edge of Cairo, smack up against the encroaching sprawl of suburban Giza. To get to the pyramids, I decide to make the trip the old-fashioned way, through the desert on the back of a camel.
I've seen thousands of pictures of the pyramids, but you really don't get a sense of how huge they are until you're actually here in person. I think to get the best view, though, we've got to get up close.
It's up close that I hope to get to the bottom of where these incredible monuments came from. Archaeologists say the Egyptian pharaohs used thousands of workers over several decades to build these monuments as giant mausoleums around 2550 BC. But not everyone agrees. There are some who claim that they're actually far older, and that the pharaohs aren't the ones who built them at all.
If you're going to see the Great Pyramids, this is definitely the best way to do it. Thanks, Habibi.
John Van Auken of the Association for Research and Enlightenment is definitely not an archaeologist.
John?
His theories of who built the pyramids are very different from the mainstream archaeological view.
All right.
This is it.
This is it.
The Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid of Giza.
Can we go up?
John insists that the origins of the pyramids go back over 12,000 years, to 10,500 BC. His beliefs are rooted in the work of the renowned American theorist Edgar Cayce, who early in the 20th century reinvigorated interest in the mythical lost civilization of Atlantis. It was his belief that not only did this highly sophisticated civilization once exist, but that the pyramids are its legacy. According to John, the continent of Atlantis sank in a cataclysm of violent earthquakes and floods over 12,000 years ago. Refugees fleeing from the destruction settled in Egypt, carrying with them the technical skills and wisdom of their advanced civilization. Mourning their vanished land, they constructed the pyramids as a grand monument to commemorate its loss.
You're telling me this was built 10,500 BC?
Yeah.
What's your proof?
Much of what we have is myth, legend, and some circumstantial evidence. Some of the circumstantial evidence we have, though, is pretty powerful and has to be considered in the overall thought about the dating of this place.
Okay, give me some circumstantial evidence.
Well, we're sitting on
A mountain of evidence.
A mountain of evidence
Okay.
of high technology and skill to build something this amazing.
Could the Egyptians have built this?
No. The stones are too large, they're too perfectly cut, too perfectly put together. Aspects of this pyramid are just too phenomenal to leave to a primitive group of that period of time.
Where is the archaeological
For John,
community?
the technical skills necessary to build the pyramids were beyond the abilities of the ancient Egyptians of the time. To him, an achievement this grand required a knowledge and expertise that only the sophisticated Atlanteans could have possessed, and that it had been lost by the time of the pharaohs.
What else? What other things about the way these pyramids have been built indicate that it was a highly advanced culture?
The star alignment with constellation Orion, you'll notice they're built one, and then the second one directly in line with this one, and then the third one offline. exactly how the star in the belt of Orion is arranged. The 2 stars in direct alignment and the 3rd one off.
Many other monuments throughout the world are aligned with the stars. But what John says is that the orientation of the pyramids last matched Orion's belt perfectly in 10,500 BC. Precisely the time the Atlanteans would have been building at Giza. Archaeologists, however, have carbon dated the pyramid's mortar to a much later period of time, the reign of the pharaoh Khufu, around 2550 BC.
John, what about physical proof? Archaeologists say that these dates are pretty fixed.
One of the hardest pieces of evidence they have is the carbon dating. We, however, believe that when Khufu came here, this was already an ancient monument and he was repairing it.
So the carbon dating is accurate, but they didn't actually build the pyramid then, they just fixed it up.
They were repairing what was, even to them, a very ancient monument.
Many archaeologists take offense at the suggestion that the ancient Egyptians were too primitive to have built the pyramids. Chief among them is Dr. Zahi Hawass, the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Dr. Hawass has been excavating the Giza Plateau for over 25 years, and if anyone can tell me the archaeological story of the pyramids, it'll be him.
I've just heard some interesting and some compelling theories about who built the pyramids and when.
People like to make a speculation. They like to dream.
Dr. Hawass has heard these theories before, and it soon becomes clear that he has little patience for them.
That the archaeological evidence is enough to prove that the builder of the pyramids were the Egyptians.
In his mind, archaeology leaves no doubts at all that it's the ancient Egyptians who deserve credit for building the pyramids.
We never discovered any evidence about lost civilization. Nothing. Zero.
Not far from his office, in the shadow of the pyramids, is a series of tombs that he says was built for the workmen.
Discovery of the tombs of the pyramid builders.
For archaeologists, this ancient cemetery is a critical piece of evidence linking the construction of the pyramids to Egyptian civilization.
Look at, they built their tombs from what's left over in building the pyramids. They saved chunks of limestone to save when they built the pyramid. And they're buried. Look at these tombs. These are the tombs of the workmen who actually moved the stones. The workmen
Zahi tells me that the workers who built the pyramids weren't slaves, as is commonly believed. Instead of paying taxes, Egypt's noble families provided laborers to the building projects in 3-month shifts.
If you look at all these tombs, from the study of every stone, we can really understand a lot. A lot about the workmen who built the pyramid. I can prove one important thing that I always say, that the pyramid was a national project.
One of the difficulties in studying the pyramids is the general lack of inscriptions inside.
Exactly.
With no written clues about who built them and when, drawing definitive conclusions can be problematic. These tombs, however, help to answer some of these questions.
This man, his name is Nefer.
The people who were buried here did inscribe their tombs, leaving a record of their lives for archaeologists to piece together.
You know, if you look at this hieroglyphic, it's called Sahaj Siru, like the inspector of the officials. Look, Josh. That's his name in hieroglyphs. Wisr Ninisut. All these tombs that I will show you, it has titles of people like the overseer of the workmen who dragged the stones, the overseer of the sculptors, or the draftsman, or the craftsman. All of these are evidence to tell us that the builder of the pyramids were actually people like me and you.
But their names aren't the only things they left behind.
Josh, do you believe in the curse?
I've heard about it.
What, do you believe in it?
I'd like not to get cursed, so sure.
And that's exactly what I'm going to show you, a curse inscription that this man left here. And it's saying here, listen, all of you, if anyone will touch my tomb, he will be eaten by crocodile, the hippo, and the lion.
It's a curse.
Then it's a curse.
Now, the person who exhumed the body and studied the bones, was he eaten by a crocodile?
No.
Hippo?
Crocodiles can
Hippo.
eat only those who believe in lost civilization.
Okay.
The base of the pyramid.
Tomb inscriptions aren't the only things Zahi has to show me.
The number of the stones.
He tells me there's even more evidence deep inside the Great Pyramid. It's hidden in a chamber that almost no one ever gets to see.
Is this the original entrance?
No, this entrance opened in the 9th century AD. When Ma'mun from the Arabian Nights came with his soldiers, they tried to enter the pyramid. They could not find the main entrance. Then they dug this entrance and they entered like us now.
I feel like I'm traveling back in time, deep into the beginnings of human civilization. It's an amazing feeling.
We still call this today the entrance of Ma'mun. Ma'mun, from the Arabian Nights.
I'd always thought that the Arabian Nights was just a book of fairy tales. But if the hero of these stories was a real person, perhaps John Van Auken's theories are more than just mythology, too. Zahi is leading me deep inside Khufu's pyramid, through steep, narrow shafts literally built into the rock around us. With each step, the air gets more stifling and the stone walls more confining.
It's nice to stand up.
Look at it, how it's dangerous to go up.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's an adventure,
I like
and we're
adventure.
going to see lots of evidence that the Egyptians were the pyramid builders.
We're 200 feet into the pyramid and counting, on the trail of who really built it.
Come here, look at this. Look how perfectly cut that is.
Dr. Zahi Hawass is taking me to see evidence he says will put the question to rest once and for all. I'm on a quest to find out who really built the mysterious pyramids of Giza. John Van Auken told me they're the legacy of Atlantis. Zahi Hawass says the evidence points to an Egyptian pharaoh. What's the real story? Dr. Hawass is taking me deep inside the pyramid, looking for clues. We're now over 450 feet into the pyramid, and we've come to a tiny passage called the antechamber. When the pyramid was first built, the antechamber was blocked off by 3 huge granite portcullises, which were dropped into place to protect the pyramid's prize, the main burial chamber. The portcullises are now gone, and simply by stooping over again, Zahi and I are able to enter the king's chamber.
Josh, this is actually the 3rd burial chamber in the pyramid. It is built of granite.
This whole room was carved.
Each block is about 16 tons weight.
Can't imagine. Can you imagine just getting this stuff up here? From the ground level, all the way up here. Look at the, come here, look at this. Look at the joints. Look at how perfectly cut that is.
One thing is certain, whoever did build this was incredibly skilled. But our goal is actually even higher than this burial chamber. Zahi is taking me to a closed-off area of the pyramid that almost no one gets to see. Above the main burial chamber are a series of 5 rooms called the relieving chambers. It's here that he's going to show me graffiti he says was left by the pyramid builders themselves. To get to them, we have to crawl through a tiny shaft the workers cut to allow themselves a way out after their work was done. The shaft has been closed to visitors for many years, and it's only with Zahi's special permission that we're able to enter.
So people don't usually go up there.
Never. I haven't been up there 9 years now.
Wow.
The going isn't easy, and I can see why visits here are so rare.
Were the Egyptians small people?
You need more training.
Were they small? Were they little people?
No, they were like us.
1 feet tall? March 30th, 1837. Wellington's chamber.
These chambers were first entered by archaeologists in 1837, when English explorers used gunpowder to blast their way in.
Much better. All right.
Are you right?
Yeah, I just, you know. Oh, this is Nelson's chamber.
Yeah, each chamber was called by an English explorer.
Over the years, other visitors covered the walls and ceilings with their own marks, until Egyptian authorities finally closed this part of the pyramid. But it isn't 19th century graffiti that we're here to see.
You know, Josh, we are in a place that no one else can enter.
Really?
You suffered, of course.
you.
That's a real adventure.
That's a great adventure.
But I want you to remember that pyramids of Dynasty 4 were not inscribed, because the trend of this period is to build massive.
Other Egyptian tombs are elaborately decorated with hieroglyphs, but the pyramids of Giza have no artwork inside them to tell their story. The only writing to be found here is graffiti.
You know, the ancient Egyptian divided the workmen to a crew, consist of 2,000 workmen.
Okay.
And they divide the crew to 2 gangs. Each gang has a name, and each gang has an overseer, and each gang consists
If some of the graffiti here was actually left behind by the workers who built the pyramids, this would be a huge clue about when they were really constructed and by whom.
Lead on.
Oh,
This is where archaeology happens.
yeah.
Does it help if you grunt?
Yeah. This is fun. Okay, show me, give me this.
There you go.
If you see, this is the word for wa-o khufu. You know, I will tell you something. People always say this could be written by the people who came here in the last 2 centuries. But you know, for me as an archaeologist, I can smell history. I can know that actually if this has been written by a workman or not. And one other thing, in many stones, if we bring a mirror, you'll find there is graffiti like this has been left behind all the stones in the 5 chambers.
Can I put this in here?
You can,
Though I don't have the necessary equipment to see all the way behind this stone, I can make out some markings with the small mirror I do have.
This graffiti can be shown behind the stones,
Yeah.
in front of the stones, but I will show you a big graffiti in the 5th chamber with the name of the gangs who built the pyramids.
Upstairs.
Upstairs. More adventures.
This could be the best evidence yet that ancient Egyptians were the ones who built the pyramid. If there's graffiti behind the stones, that means it could only have been written before the stones were put into place by the work gang. It's an exciting connection tying the pyramid to the reign of Khufu, circa 2550 BC. Here in the uppermost relieving chamber, we're as high as anyone has ever been inside the pyramid.
Josh, I have a
And
surprise.
could I really be about to see the equivalent of an artist signing his work?
Look, that is the cartouche of Khufu, the king. And this is the word in hieroglyphic means the gang who are the follower of Khufu. That was the name of the gang who built the pyramid. Then that name of the gang, it is written somewhere else.
Where?
In many graffitis around, not only inside the pyramid, but also outside, that Egyptologists were able to reconstruct the administration of building the pyramid. But in my opinion, this is the most important thing, that the workmen who brought this stone here actually are the gang, the followers of Khufu.
And they signed it.
And they signed it.
That's great.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I will see you and we'll talk about more evidence
Okay.
about the ancient Egyptian.
I'll see myself out?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Goodbye.
No problem. Just 5 levels down and 3 ropes? So
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. I'll just hang up here. Don't mind me.
I can't believe my luck. Zahi has left me alone in the highest chamber of the pyramid, in a place no one's allowed to enter. Looking around, I continue to be amazed by how incredible an achievement the pyramid is. This seam was so perfectly joined that it's shifted barely an inch over thousands of years.
The whole pyramid is coming together above us, around us, and just creating this little chamber. It's a privilege to be here to see the original hieroglyphs that the workers left their mark, saying we built this in a moment of pride. To see all the graffiti that was left here over the years. I'm amazed at the rough quality of the work here. Some of the joints that we saw coming up are perfect, laser etched, just perfectly seen. And here it's a lot more rough and ready. You can see the work here hasn't been finished. There's a lot of cut marks. These red lines showing where the architect wanted the rock to be cut, but it wasn't. So this is it's a much more intimate look at the making of the pyramid.
And this intimate look provides some pretty compelling evidence. Seeing the workers' names written on the walls next to Khufu's is really powerful. But could they have actually accomplished such amazing work 4,500 years ago? I've inspected the Great Pyramid of Giza both inside and out, searching for clues about who built it and when. Dr. Zahi Hawass took me deep inside to show me evidence of Egyptian workers. But John Van Auken says only refugees from Atlantis had the skill to design and build a pyramid. I want to understand exactly what's involved in cutting and moving the millions of stones that went into the pyramids. And the only way to do that is by taking a turn in a quarry myself.
I'm now deep in the south of Cairo, and if I follow my directions properly, there should be a quarry at the end of this street. I'm here to meet Danny Roy, a specialist in Egyptian stonemasonry, and I'm hoping that he can show me how the Egyptians were able to quarry such massive rocks and move them to build the pyramids. I still haven't quite figured out how the right-of-way system works here. Okay, hold on.
Egyptians have been quarrying limestone here for thousands of years. The area is pocked with quarries cut deep into the ground that have been worked for generations. Driving around decades worth of rubble, it's as though I'm traveling on a road back through time. In a way, that's exactly what I'm doing. Stonework in Egypt is an unbroken tradition that goes back to pharaonic times, and methods haven't changed much over the centuries. The rock that's harvested in this quarry is the same limestone that was used in building the pyramid, so I'm in a perfect place to see if all that work is humanly possible.
But this quarry still does things the old-fashioned way.
Pretty much, yeah. The tools might differ a little bit from what they used to use in pharaonic time, but basically the techniques are the same, yes.
How are the tools different?
The stones these workers are cutting are destined for villas or bridges rather than pyramids. And the tools they're using are made of hardened steel instead of the much softer copper or bronze that the ancient Egyptians had available.
This one is what he's doing right now. He's going to crack the stone.
His goal is to split this rock.
Yes.
And how long does it take him to do something like this?
To crack a block like this, a few minutes.
Really?
It's very quickly. Now what he's doing is making a wave of shock all along the block to make sure that the block cracks in the good direction.
I should move.
So
This stone is a fraction of the size of the ones used in the pyramids, and it took a lot of work to split with the swing of a sledgehammer. But the sharpness of the cut reminds me of the precision joints I saw in the pyramid. If the rock splits this perfectly, maybe it was possible for ancient Egyptians to have done such perfect work.
try one.
Okay.
It's very hard to go wrong. You
Really?
just have to hit as hard as you can on this with this.
Does it matter how I swing?
No,
Not over
as
the
long
shoulder.
as it's right on the wedge.
Like this?
Well, it might take you a few more strikes because this guy has been doing this for 40 years. So,
How
but
many
go
strikes?
ahead.
It's not one shot.
I don't know.
Just give him my everything.
Less than 10.
That's fun to watch. Okay. All right.
Strongly.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. More. Yeah, you have it. Yay.
One more?
Oh, that's good.
That's good?
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My first rock splitting experience. How much? They pay me now? All right. Thank you. Shukran.
But now, one thing you have to know is that those wedges and fins were not used during pharaonic time.
So it turns out I broke that rock using the latest in Egyptian stoneworking technology. If the modern way is that tedious, the techniques available to the ancient Egyptians must have made the task near impossible. Danny takes me nearby to show me some other workers using more traditional methods.
Sure. Those are trenches that they make to separate the blocks from the mass, from the mountain.
And all of these trenches here are made by hand?
Uh-huh.
Danny describes how gangs of workers used chisels made of copper or bronze to carve trenches into the limestone rock bed. The stones would then be lifted out and transported to the building site. It was backbreaking work. Today, the basic technique's the same, with barefooted quarrymen toiling away in the same harsh Egyptian sun. The only real change over these thousands of years is the use of steel tools and wedges.
A lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
3,000 years ago or today, it's just a lot of work.
Yes, and often here also, this trade was passed on from father to son.
Their fathers may have brought them as kids to this site.
Exactly. So it's really a tradition that never died since pharaonic time.
And the tools might be a little better, which just means it was that much harder back then.
Touch it again, lower.
The weight of the pyramid stones ranged from less than a ton to 20 tons, with the average weight being 2.5 tons.
Other side? Oh, okay.
So after they were quarried, how could they possibly have been moved? Danny's brought with him a sled like one the Egyptians would have used to haul the stones, and we give it a shot.
So now what?
So now we're going to drag the sled across the surface here.
The ancient Egyptians would have built a special ramp covered in clay or stone dust for the sled to be pulled over. Once it was doused with water, the wet clay made it possible to drag the sled over the ramp. Here in this modern quarry, we don't have a clay roadway to work with. But the wet stone dust should work well enough to give us an idea of just how difficult a task this would have been.
It's supposed to be totally flat.
Okay. So maybe you and I can give it a shot.
Do it.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm feeling strong. Is there a technique?
No.
Just pull.
No, I think we need more people.
Okay.
This is too heavy.
Yeah, well, more people.
I guess I wasn't feeling quite strong enough. But Danny estimates the weight of this stone to be about 2 tons, so I don't feel too bad.
Oh, I moved. Okay. There we go.
Once we added some more guys, we're able to move the sled without too much trouble.
Okay, we're dry. We're dry. We ran out of water. But I think we've come 30 feet, right? And so that proves that it can be done. It's just a question of how many men, how much water, and how far you need to go.
And now take into consideration also the surface we're sliding on.
Yeah.
Here. It's not perfectly flat. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So do we need to push this back?
No, we'll roll it back.
Okay, good. Thank God.
Working in the quarries is hard, punishing work, but it's not totally impossible. With enough people and the right motivation, ancient workmen may have been able to harvest all those stones within the 30 or so years archaeologists estimate it took to build the Great Pyramid. After looking at traces archaeologists say were left by Egyptian pyramid workers, and then taking a turn as one myself, the evidence is stacking up pretty high in favor of the Egyptians as the builders of the pyramids. But it's not settled yet. John Van Auken says that the ancient Egyptians were just doing repair work at the already ancient Giza pyramids. Could it be possible that the archaeologist evidence is solid, but their timeline is 6,000 years late?
Let's do it.
I've seen evidence that archaeologists say proves it was the ancient Egyptians who built the pyramids. And after trying my hand working in a quarry, I believe that it could have been done. John Van Auken, however, does not. He's adamant that it was only the advanced knowledge and skills of Atlantis that made building such incredible monuments possible. And the debate isn't confined to Giza. Just across the desert is another mysterious monument, the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. Archaeologists say it was the first pyramid ever built, but John couldn't disagree more.
Uniquely, we believe the 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau are the oldest, whereas the archaeologists believe those pyramids over in Saqqara are older and are an example of learning how to build pyramids. We actually believe they were forgetting how to build them.
I need to go to Saqqara to check out the evidence, and there's 2 ways to get there. On a bus with some tourists, or on horseback with my friend Murad.
That's an easy decision. Come on. Yeah.
According to archaeologists, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara dates back to 2630 BC, almost 100 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. Pyramid building actually evolved within a relatively short period of time. In fact, it was a family affair. Archaeologists say that the Step Pyramid was built as a tomb for Khufu's grandfather, King Joseph.
Josh, this is our pyramid.
All right. Thanks for the ride, Murad.
You're very welcome, Josh.
My guide to the Step Pyramid is Dr. Salima Ikram, a specialist in the evolution of Egyptian tomb building. She's going to explain to me how pyramid building developed here at Saqqara and progressed to Giza.
So this is the first pyramid in the world?
Yep, it is the first pyramid in the world, and it was the largest stone monument when it was first constructed. It was built as a tomb for the king, but it's groundbreaking in terms of the architecture because nothing like this had ever been seen before. In fact, nothing in stone on a significant scale had ever been seen before.
Well, if a king had a tomb before this, what did it look like?
It tended to be somewhat similar in terms of a flat, low mound, but it was not made of stone. It was just a bunch of mud and mud brick and sand and rubble that was piled up to make a sort of mound.
Salima tells me that this new pyramid shape was born when the royal architect, Imhotep, stacked these mounds called mastabas to create the grand tomb that's here today. His innovation was so groundbreaking that Imhotep came to be revered as a god and continued to be worshipped long after his death. Inside the pyramid, Salima shows me features she says were begun here and later perfected at Giza.
Wow, that's huge.
It's amazing.
So there's a doorway.
Yep, that hole over there is the doorway, which was one of the access ways into the original tomb. You can't really see where he's buried right now because there's this huge granite plug which basically blocked off the tomb, so that after the king was buried, the tomb was sealed, no one ever went in. You've been to Giza, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you remember those portcullises, the granite portcullises? They're a development from this tomb. So over here, you just have a big giant plug to stop people from going in.
So this is the prototype.
Mm-hmm. This is the prototype. And then you see the evolution of the tomb when you get to Giza and see how far it's progressed.
That's interesting.
Salima explains that the granite plug below us, which blocked the burial chamber of King Joseph, evolved into the 3 granite portcullises Zahi and I passed through in the Great Pyramid. It's another clue that the Giza pyramids fit into the timeline of Egyptian history.
Now, if I wanted to go down there and take a look, is it possible?
No, unfortunately not. It's really unstable because of earthquakes. But if we go to the southern tomb, you can see some of the decoration, which is stupendous.
Oh, let's go check it out.
Absolutely. Come this way.
The southern tomb served as a cenotaph, or symbolic tomb for the king. The decorations inside, according to archaeology, are nearly 5,000 years old. It's a rare treat that we're allowed entrance.
It's the most amazing thing you've ever seen.
It's stunning.
See these walls? Mm-hmm. They all have these blue tiles, and it's supposed to look like mats that have been unrolled. So this is the rope.
Salima tells me that the step pyramid isn't just the prototype for later pyramid development. It's also an evolution of earlier Egyptian architectural forms. These tiles represent stylized reed mats, making the step pyramid complex a version in stone of traditional Egyptian building styles. This place, therefore, isn't even a beginning so much as a progression.
Draw a connection that this came before Giza.
Yeah, absolutely.
The case Zahi presented to me at Giza was compelling. Now, here at Saqqara, Salima showed me how the step pyramid fits into a timeline of Egyptian cultural evolution. The archaeological evidence is lining up to make a pretty powerful argument that the pyramids are distinctly Egyptian.
John, I think the biggest hurdle...
So where does this leave John Van Auken?
Is that there's not much...
With all this evidence, it seems he doesn't have much of a case left. Archaeologists Zahi Hawass and Salima Ikram have poked some pretty large holes in the theory that the pyramids were built by immigrants from Atlantis. But that hasn't shaken John Van Auken's faith. He strongly believes that the ancient Egyptians were only repairing monuments that preceded them by millennia. And that mountain of evidence, the Great Pyramid, he says he's got something even older to show me.
Well, the archaeologists want evidence, not just theories and ancient Akashic myths. And there is some evidence here that seems to be inconsistent with the archaeological dates.
John maintains that the Sphinx is actually the oldest monument at Giza, and that he's got the hard evidence to prove it. What's more, he links the enigmatic sculpture directly to a lost library housing the wisdom of Giza's Atlantean architects.
Geologists say this type of erosion...
John takes me to erosion marks on the walls surrounding the Sphinx.
See the ripple pattern on these rocks? Yeah. This is caused by tropical rain runoff, eroding the rocks in this manner. Well, in order for that to happen, this has to be a lot older.
Because there wasn't enough water here?
John explains that geological studies show these erosion marks could have been caused only by torrential rain, which hasn't fallen on the Giza Plateau since around 7000 BC.
So these marks, the way the water just channels down into these sort of rounded shapes?
Exactly, yes.
Because originally...
If this is true, John has himself a strong piece of evidence. Could the Sphinx really be the oldest monument here at Giza?
Well, if that's the case, it is possible that this wall was here and the Sphinx wasn't.
Well, yes, but if you turn around and look, you'll see rainwater erosion up there.
So that may have happened at the same time that this happened?
Yes.
So the erosion marks are consistent?
That's what we believe.
Egyptologists say the Sphinx was carved as a guardian over the tombs of the pharaohs. But if the Atlanteans really built it long before, why? did it guard something very different?
So if it's reaching the horizon and keeping time, guarding some secret, I guess the question is, what is the secret?
Let's take a look at this stela, and I think
John
you'll see
believes
that-
the answer can be found in the dream stela, a hieroglyphic tablet which stands between the paws of the Sphinx.
Look at the picture that they carved.
Looks like a house.
Yes, a subterranean chamber beneath the Sphinx.
He says that important clues about the legacy of the Atlanteans are contained in the stela's inscriptions. John claims that as Atlantis finally disappeared beneath the waves, a band of refugees rescued the archives of the vanishing civilization. They brought them here, hiding them away in a subterranean hall of records. The inscriptions of the dream stela serve as a treasure map carved in stone.
There's actually something under the Sphinx?
Yes.
Why are there two?
The Sphinx on the left is the Sphinx of the ancient time when it was first built and the records were buried and sealed. And that's the Sphinx of yesterday. When you look to this side, you're actually seeing the Sphinx of tomorrow when it is opened and the
Unveiling
records.
its secrets.
Yeah.
John, I could see looking at this Sphinx.
Could the Sphinx be sheltering a treasure map between its paws? Could it be the guardian not of royal tombs, but of the forgotten knowledge of an ancient people? I decide to bring Zahi to the same place to hear his take on John's evidence.
I think you'll like this because he keeps saying, show me some real evidence. And I know I could say there's a chamber there and you can't see it and we'll never know.
Yeah.
But here's something that is actually physical. The erosion patterns on these rocks. Don't geologists say that this erosion was caused by water, which had to be at least 9,000, 10,000 years ago?
But this has been stated by only one geologist.
One person. Yeah. But he could be like the Galileo, who's trying to convince everyone.
Yeah, he tried, but I believe he is wrong.
You do. But he could be right.
No.
No?
Zahi tells me that the erosion here has a simpler explanation.
All this
He says that the Sphinx was carved from a single outcropping of limestone, that the marks we see are natural fissures in the rock, accentuated by centuries of sand erosion. But what will we make of the dream stela, with its image of the Sphinx perched above what appears to be an underground room?
water erosion.
I'm curious what the archaeologists make of these inscriptions.
The inscriptions are very clear.
Okay.
It shows Thutmose the fourth in front of the Sphinx laying upon a pedestal. Then all this hieroglyphic is telling us about this story. I don't understand how this story has to do with Atlantis or anything like that.
So that doesn't look like a house?
No. Every Egyptian god stand upon a pedestal. This is just any pedestal. It has to have like a chair. It has to have something like this.
The story that Zahi reads from this stela is very different from the one that John told me. He says it tells of an Egyptian pharaoh named Thutmose IV, who rose to power after dreaming that the Sphinx spoke to him. To commemorate this dream and his subsequent ascension to the throne of Egypt, he erected this stela.
What we've discovered are workmen, inscriptions, tombs, temples.
To Zahi, the pyramids and the Sphinx are without a doubt Egyptian creations, and his archaeological evidence trumps John's theories every time.
But there is no evidence about anything connected with Atlantis. It is a myth. Archaeology proves everything.
To underscore his point, Zahi has one more thing to show me. A subterranean chamber has been found beneath the causeway that links the Sphinx to its pyramid. But it's no lost library. He's taking me to see the flooded tomb of an Egyptian god.
Then watch out, because we are going 3 stages. Okay. This is level 1. Watch out.
Right. That's a long way.
Slippery.
How would they get up and down here without these ladders?
This ladder's a little bit wobbly.
Yeah, you can come down now.
Deep below the ground lies the tomb of Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld.
I want you to look at this. Inside
The only thing I can see is the top of a giant coffin.
Oh, we're standing on a sarcophagus.
This is the lid above the sarcophagus. Before that, I discovered the hieroglyphic word called Bir, means house.
Where was that?
You cannot see it's under the water now. But
Zahi explains that the Giza Plateau was once called the place or house of Osiris.
But really, I tried
As the god who watches over the tombs of the pharaohs, the presence of Osiris's tomb here means that the monuments on the plateau above are under his protection. So while John Van Auken is right, and there are underground chambers here, he's only partially correct.
Be careful, because it's dangerous here.
Everything that's been discovered at Giza, the mythological world underground, and the monumental world on the surface, complete a picture not of Atlantean, but of Egyptian mythology.
still can continue the myth because he's the lord of the underground tunnels at Giza. He's the god who's protecting all of them.
And we're standing on his tomb.
Exactly.
Should probably move on with it.
Okay.
I've climbed as high inside the pyramid as anyone has ever gone, and I've descended as far below the Giza plateau as possible. From top to bottom, what I've seen points to the glories of an ancient civilization, Egypt. Some believe that the great monuments of the Giza plateau, the massive pyramids, and the enigmatic Sphinx can only be explained as the work of a superhuman master race. But according to Zahi Hawass, they were really built by people just like you and me, and that isn't any less fantastic. Today, tomorrow, and for the next 5,000 years, it's the incredible achievement they represent that's the most amazing truth of all.
Architecture and bustling market. People have been drawn here for centuries. Walking around the market, the city feels ancient, but it's not. When Cairo was founded in 970 AD, civilization had already existed in Egypt for over 4,000 years.
And the greatest evidence of this is pretty hard to miss. The pyramids are the last remaining wonder of the ancient world. Today, they rise out of the desert literally on the very edge of Cairo, smack up against the encroaching sprawl of suburban Giza. To get to the pyramids, I decide to make the trip the old-fashioned way, through the desert on the back of a camel.
I've seen thousands of pictures of the pyramids, but you really don't get a sense of how huge they are until you're actually here in person. I think to get the best view, though, we've got to get up close.
It's up close, and I hope this week, join me as I explore one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries.
Who built these incredible structures? Was it really the ancient Egyptians?
Or could these be the legacy of a lost civilization? To get to the truth, I'll go deep inside the greatest pyramid on Earth, then descend far below the first pyramid ever built. I'll explore evidence some say proves the Sphinx is twice as old as previously thought. We're digging for the truth, and we're going to extremes to do it.
Hi, I'm Josh Bernstein, and this is Cairo. With over 20 million people, it's one of the largest cities in the world. And for over 1,000 years, it's also been one of the greatest. It's easy to see why. With this beautiful architecture,
To get to the bottom of where these incredible monuments came from. Archaeologists say the Egyptian pharaohs used thousands of workers over several decades to build these monuments as giant mausoleums around 2550 BC. But not everyone agrees. There are some who claim that they're actually far older, and that the pharaohs aren't the ones who built them at all.
if you're going to see the Great Pyramids, this is definitely the best way to do it. Thanks, Habibi.
John Van Auken of the Association for Research and Enlightenment is definitely not an archaeologist.
John?
His theories of who built the pyramids are very different from the mainstream archaeological view.
All right.
This is it.
This is it.
The Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid of Giza.
Can we go up?
John insists that the origins of the pyramids go back over 12,000 years, to 10,500 BC.
Has to be considered in the overall thought about the dating of this place.
Okay, give me some circumstantial evidence.
Well, we're sitting on the
Mountain of evidence.
a mountain of evidence
Okay.
of high technology and skill to build something this amazing.
Could the Egyptians have built this?
No, the stones are too large. They're too perfectly cut, too perfectly put together. Aspects of this pyramid are just too phenomenal to leave to a primitive group of that period of time.
Whereas the
For
archaeological
John,
community...
the technical skills necessary to build the pyramids were beyond the abilities of the ancient Egyptians of the time. To him, an achievement this grand required a knowledge and expertise that only the sophisticated Atlanteans could have possessed, and that it had been lost by the time of the pharaohs.
What else? What other things about the way these pyramids have been built indicate that it was a highly advanced culture?
The star alignment with constellation Orion, you'll notice they're built one, and then the second one directly in line with this one, and then...
His beliefs are rooted in the work of the renowned American theorist Edgar Cayce, who early in the 20th century reinvigorated interest in the mythical lost civilization of Atlantis. It was his belief that not only did this highly sophisticated civilization once exist, but that the pyramids are its legacy. According to John, the continent of Atlantis sank in a cataclysm of violent earthquakes and floods over 12,000 years ago. Refugees fleeing from the destruction settled in Egypt, carrying with them the technical skills and wisdom of their advanced civilization. Mourning their vanished land, they constructed the pyramids as a grand monument to commemorate its loss.
You're telling me this was built 10,500 BC?
Yeah.
What's your proof?
Much of what we have is myth, legend, and some circumstantial evidence. Some of the circumstantial evidence we have, though, is pretty powerful in